Today on the kickback.
When you're in class and a professor calls you the other black person in the class's name. And for me, I really did not look like this woman. It was two black girls in our Gov class. I look nothing like this girl. When I say nothing, I am on the darker spectrum of the color of skin types. She is on one of the lightest. It was just when he called me her name and he looked me right in my eye, and it's just, you have that moment and you're like, bruh.
What's up, what's up, what's up? It's your girl Dom, and welcome back to the kickback. Today I have the same cast members that were here for the convo, back for another conversation to talk about being a black student in an Ivy League. Whether you're black, white, gray, green, purple, blue, I think it's essential for you to watch this video so you can see what your peers are experiencing on a daily basis. This week's cast members joining me at the kickback are Nina from Yale University, 𝐋𝐄𝐓'𝐒 from Columbia University, Nem from Brown University, Demi from Dartmouth College, 𝐋𝐄𝐓'𝐒 from Princeton University, Eric from Harvard University, Ryan from the University of Pennsylvania, and 𝐋𝐄𝐓'𝐒 from Cornell University. So let's head to the kickback. Hey guys, and welcome back to the kickback. Today I have the same cast from the previous video here. Last time we talked about being black and why our lives matter. So this time we're going to talk about being black at a white institution and how we navigate that space. First, I'm going to have everyone introduce themselves again, starting with Yale.
Hi everyone, I'm Nina. I am a rising junior at Yale and I'm studying political science.
Hi everyone, my name is Demi. I'm studying government and I'm a senior at Dartmouth.
What's up everyone? My name is Ryan. I'm majoring in finance and minoring in music, and I'm a rising senior.
What's up everybody? My name is Eric. I'm a rising junior at Harvard and I'm studying sociology.
I'm 𝐋𝐄𝐓'𝐒, and I'm a recent graduate from Cornell University, and I majored in interdisciplinary studies with a focus in public health and business.
What's up everyone, my name is 𝐋𝐄𝐓'𝐒. I'm a rising junior at Columbia and I'm double majoring in neuroscience and biology.
Hey guys, I'm Nem. I'm a rising senior at Brown University and I'm majoring in public health.
What's up guys, my name is 𝐋𝐄𝐓'𝐒. I'm a rising junior at Princeton, majoring in neuroscience with a certificate in African American studies.
So my first question, to have everybody kind of be aware of how many black students are on each campus. If you had to guess the percentage of black students on your campus, if you can put that number up to the camera on the count of 3. But this is just your guess, so this might not be correct, but off of how you feel, how many black students are on your campus, okay? 1, 2, 3. Okay. I think the lowest I saw was Dartmouth with 4%, probably. So how?
It's slow there, bro.
It's really slow, and I was thinking 3 or 4. I was gonna go lower.
How do you navigate that space only having what you feel to be 4%?
I feel like when I got to Dartmouth, I didn't visit the school before I went there. So I really didn't know what I was walking into. But when I got there, I was like, when people say white people are the majority in this country, this is what they're talking about. They are deep. They hide in different places, but they are deep. It was just I had to latch on to the black people that I saw and I met. You get very close to black people at your school when there's only a couple. We all know each other. We all know where everybody comes from, where their parents are from. So if it's beef, then you're beefing with the only 5 people that look like you on campus.
So for the schools that had a higher percentage than, let's say, 7, do you feel as though you know everybody? Does every black face you see on campus, you know their name, you know where they're from?
I think I overshot the mark. I think it's more around 10, but I said 20 just initially because I think at Yale, the black community is very close. I kind of have, in a way, distanced myself from white Yale and from PWI Yale by surrounding myself with such a tight group of black students.
I think at Harvard, it's not that everybody knows each other's names, but whenever you see a black person, you nod or you say what's up. So there's just like that sense, like if you see a Black person on campus, like usually like you don't know their name, but like you know each other in a sense. So
yeah, I would say it's very similar at Princeton. I think I would say that I recognize most of the Black faces, but I wouldn't say that all the Black people on campus were extremely tight.
When I walk on campus, I wouldn't say I'm like friends with everybody, but like I recognize a lot of the faces, and I think most Black people on my campus kind of know of each other. The Black community in Harlem, whips through Columbia all the time. I spend a lot of time in Harlem, just because I find peace in that. I find peace there, so I tend to be surrounded with Black people more than I am with white Columbia, just white community there in general.
Yeah, I would say the same for Penn. I don't know everybody that's Black, but I pretty much know know of everyone that is Black.
At Brown, I would say I've seen most Black faces. I wouldn't say that I know everybody or that we're all super close. I feel like we don't have that much of a tight-knit community, Black community at Brown, even though the percentage is somewhere around like 9 to 11%, but we definitely know of each other.
Personally, at Cornell, the Black community is really close. So of course, as many of you said, like I know most of the faces, I know, or at least have an idea of who is in the community.
So kind of how most of you brought up that there's like a Black Yale or Black Harvard, Black Penn, do you feel like your campus is extremely segregated?
Do you have white friends, or are you guys only friends with Black people?
As I sort of said before, like the Brown doesn't really have that much of a tight-knit like Black community. So I feel like the campus is pretty integrated. Like I have a lot of white friends and a lot of international friends. And I would say that for most of my Black friends as well.
For Harvard, at least in like my experience, like freshman year, most people are like usually stay within like the Black community for the most part. So like that's like when a lot of the bonds within the Black community are really built. But then like as you like transition to like sophomore year and junior year, it's like your social like network starts to expand. You definitely just get to meet more people in general, and then by extension, like you just get to interact with like more white people, more Asians, and like just like the greater community at Harvard.
Yeah, I think it's also again very similar at Princeton. But then at Princeton, like sophomore year, you join eating clubs and other sorts of things that kind of force you to integrate into the wider campus community. So at this point in my Princeton career, I like have a lot of Black friends, but also a good amount of white friends.
I want to say it's the same thing for me at Columbia. I also came from a very white school. In my graduating class, there was 4 Black boys. It was an all boys school. So coming to Columbia, where there was more than 4 Black people, I was like, man, I got a lot of time to make up for, So I more or less stuck to the Black community, at least predominantly my freshman year. As I did more extracurriculars, I established a program and my network grew. I started meeting more Latinx people, more Asian people, a couple cool white folks here and there.
Coming into Cornell, it was really different for me to have less than 5% of my student body be Black. I think because of that, I probably did surround myself with more Black people and just people of color in general.
I came from a high school that was 99% Black, like a DC public high school. So I just was not used to being in like a space 24/7 with people who didn't look like me. But as I joined different organizations on campus that weren't specific to the Black community, I feel like then I started to meet people from different, I guess, ethnicities and races.
For me, I came onto campus also looking for people like me, but because I went to a school that was 5% Black, although our like residential life is very randomized and thus diversified, I socially kind of had to seek that out. And I used the house, the Afro-American Cultural Center at Yale, to kind of guide my way.
For me personally, coming from Atlanta, all the Black communities in Atlanta, I think that it was a little bit of a culture shock for me, not being around the amount of Black people that I had been prior. But I do think that athletics has helped make more white friends. I think if I didn't have athletics, I would not have too many white friends. The football team is like 70% white or something like that. So I basically have no choice but to, have Black and white friends.
So I've spoken to some students who are high schoolers coming to the Ivies.
And the ones that I spoke to, how some of you guys went to predominantly white schools, they're a little bit nervous about coming to an Ivy.
With students who went to predominantly Black schools and not being able to mesh with them. And then if they're Caribbean, feeling like they might not be able to mix with African Americans.
On your campus, do you feel like there's a segregation within the Black community where all Africans hang out, Blacks that went to white schools hang out, Caribbeans hang out? How does that play out?
At Dartmouth, it's kind of like a historical issue. So the first group that was on our campus was called the Afro-American Society. And it was kind of supposed to like be the space for all people of African descent. But over the years, there was the creation of Dartmouth Caribbean Connection and then like Dartmouth African Student Association. So people did feel the need to like connect on a more specific level. I will say the experiences like that each group comes in with, I can understand why sometimes you want to connect on a like specific level with your affinity group, but also at the end of the day, we did come to a consensus that when we're walking on campus, like to the institution as a whole, we are Black, like we are Black bodies no matter what. So it was how to make sure that we respected each other's different cultures and upbringings while still understanding that we have to be a collective in some sort.
I think at like Harvard, I wouldn't necessarily say there's like divides along the lines of like ethnicity within the Black community. I definitely wouldn't say like people like only hang out with like Africans or like Caribbeans. It's definitely very like well intermixed. I'll say the only people that like genuinely like hang out by themselves truly are probably like the international students.
I think it's kind of similar at Yale. So the house tries to be, you know, a hub for all Black identifying students. But, you know, since the Black community is so diverse in and of itself, there are students who, you know, often don't interact with the house. And that's always a challenge, as well as what Demi said, you know, the different affinity groups that exist under the umbrella of the house.
From the outside looking in, it definitely looks like the whole Black student body is very connected, but not that it's divided, but people just sort of tend to find the lines which they're more comfortable identifying with. Like, for instance, so I was born in Nigeria, but I've lived in America for the last 9 years. But I've also noticed that I don't have the same experience as the African international students who are coming directly from whatever African country it is. So then they might tend to group together more than people who like went to school in America.
During my freshman year, there was a point where the Black community was very polarized. Different people wanted to stay within their different affinity groups, and things became very, I guess, difficult to navigate as we started getting more educated and getting, you know, I guess, used to each other's differences. I would say now the community is starting to heal and it's starting to get more tight-knit, but there was definitely a point where we're very like on the edge about a lot of things.
So as Ryan brought up before that there were some culture shocks when he got to campus, do any of you have like a story about your biggest culture shock having to do with economic differences or race differences?
In terms of the wealth gap, there was definitely a huge disparity that I never experienced before. Actual conversation I heard, someone said, "Oh, I lost my dad's Rolex the other day. How he's gonna kill me." And, you know, people were talking. He's like, "No, I'm just joking. He's just gonna get me another one." I'm like, "What? Wow." Crazy. Because if I lost my G-Shock, like, I would have a problem.
In my high school, I was actually the only African American in my graduating class. And so before coming to Brown, I really didn't have any sort of a Black community. And I didn't really have any Black friends outside of like my family members, my cousins. I'm from the South, and like where I went to high school was very conservative. On senior toga day, for example, people would like bring their Confederate flags, and like that was something normal. People would say the N-word with the hard R and like be like all white, and like it was just like fine. So like at Brown, to like come into a community where it's like that's not okay, which obviously like was super great. It was just honestly like having any sort of like Black community when I came was just really, really nice.
The main culture shock for me was just like being surrounded by like so many wealthy people. You'd go to the dining hall and then like you'd be sitting next to some girl and then you find out her dad, the Chief Justice, or you'd go somewhere else. You're walking, you're just surrounded by all these type of people and like you don't even know it.
I think for me, it was definitely the wealth gap that got to me. I think something that was really big at Cornell, it's in Ithaca, New York. It's a really cold place. And everyone had a Canada Goose jacket. I'm from South Florida. I had no idea what a Canada Goose jacket was, but apparently they're $1,000 and everyone at my school had one. And it blew my mind that this is just normal for people. They're just like, oh yeah, I ruined my Canada Goose jacket or I lost it at a party. It's fine. My dad will get me another one.
I think Canada Goose needs to sponsor the Ivy League because they have so much support. Like at Penn, you walk around campus, everybody has a specifically black Canada Goose jacket on. I almost got one. I was like, damn, I didn't get one obviously, but
I had that same mindset because I saw everybody had that same black Canada Goose. Right. I didn't want my financial aid officer seeing me with a Canada Goose.
The feds.
I'm not gonna lie, I have one, but also, granted, I go to Dartmouth and it is cold. It is cold up there, and
those the woods.
First, I thought it was a scam because I was like, we don't really need it. But then I got mine. I was like, I'm warm.
Yeah.
I understand. Now, will I walk into financial aid with it on? No.
Hell no.
It's the Canada Goose. It's the laundry plan. It's the going out every weekend.
Can you explain the laundry plan to anyone watching that doesn't know what that is?
So at Yale, at least, I don't know if this exists anywhere else, but you can basically pay to kind of have your laundry be done by Yale staff or custodial members every week. And, pressed and, folded, put in nice little duffel bags. And that's just something that I wasn't used to.
Granted, the washer and dryer 2 floors down.
Our campus is at max, you can walk from one point to another point in 20 minutes, but you will get some people who will just Uber from maybe it is their room to a class.
Wow. Yeah, no, that's actually facts.
And then also, all freshmen and sophomores are required to have the unlimited meal plan. But you'll find some people who will only eat on Nassau Street, which is where all our restaurants are. And you would think that their meal plan was providing for them to be eating off campus. So they are paying to eat on campus, but they just never do it. They just all go. It's like they have the money.
I remember at one party I went to, so we have these chemistry textbooks for STEM majors that are very thick and also very expensive. They're like $400. So I went to this one party, like one of the few white parties I've ever been to. And like, as I was leaving, I noticed they propped the door open with a chemistry textbook, and that offended me because I'm like, yo, who left this here? Like, I can't afford. I took the textbook, so.
Another thing that I found as people would love to go to like places like Martha's Vineyard, like Cape Cod, and like the Hamptons, which I thought was like, damn, like people actually have money to do that kind of stuff.
One of the craziest things I've seen at Penn is obviously all freshmen have to live on campus and in dorms. People buying apartments their freshman year and staying literally off campus, maybe 2 blocks away from their dorm that they have to still pay for. Essentially just spending $1,500 on rent and the cost of living on campus, which is crazy.
I think at Dartmouth, for me, it was more so the social scene. That was like a big culture shock. I was used to like going out in DC, like with my Black friends, like 2 Black parties. So going to a frat house, I guess, or like hearing techno music, like as the music of choice at a party was just like very unsettling for me my freshman year. I remember the first time that I was a freshman, I think like Amigo song came on, and I was used to being around Black people all the time at parties. So like when the N-word came up, like I wasn't like, who said it? It was like one of us said it and all of us are Black, so it's fine. But there it was just like when you know that the word is coming up, it's like a sense of just like, I hope nobody act dumb tonight. Like, I hope, like, my night's not ruined.
At Brown, so we have white parties, we have Black parties, we have specifically Black athlete parties, we have LGBTQ parties, and we have international parties. Between the Black parties and the Black athlete parties, so here is where there's a very interesting tension and segregation in the Black community. The Black community and the Black athletes are very separated, and actually there's always so much beef going on between the 2 groups, arising from just the Black community on several instances feels as though the Black athletes tend not to really participate in BSU. They tend to go after white girls, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And like, there's a whole bunch of calling out. So now there's actually a huge divide. So if you're a Black athlete and you're a part of the Black community, that can actually be 2 very separate things at Brown University.
Can you raise your hand if you have been turned from a party because of the color of your skin, at least in your beliefs? Okay. So 1, 2, 3. Okay, my next question is if you guys can put up fingers again with how many Black professors you have had as your professor. Not that you know on campus, but who you've legit been taught by. 1, 2, 3. Oh, wow. Okay.
Damn, y'all are lucky.
Wow. Okay.
Wait a minute.
Wow, that's really sad. So if the institutions are watching this, employ more Black people. Next, with being in the classroom setting, do you guys ever notice people treat you different because you're Black? Do they think you can't do a project because of the color of your skin? Or if you're an athlete, will they give you the easier things to do for the group project? How's the classroom setting go about on your campus?
I'll start with that. I'm actually in the business school, Wharton, and I think Wharton is heavily white and international. And I've had a bunch of classes when I'm actually the only Black student. And I do think it's harder to make friends and to join projects. And I have noticed when I do join a project, they try to give me more trivial work or, the small tasks because I'm Black, one, and I play sports. So that's like a double whammy. And they automatically think I'm incompetent. So I guess when stuff like that happens, I just kind of force myself to step out there and take assignments and take, control of the project.
Political science is a very white major on campus. It rears its ugly head for me in discussion sections. I had a particularly harrowing experience in a discussion section my first semester of my first year. I was a Black woman in a discussion section with 5 other white men. I would get talked over. My points would kind of get brushed over with a curriculum that's already heavily white. And so that was a crash course for me.
I'm also a government major at Dartmouth, which is like a very old, historic, like white major. I think I'm one of 5 Black women, I think, graduating with a government degree. So it's very rare, and you have to prove yourself. Through my experience, I never felt like I could not know what was going on. As a Black woman, I felt like in every situation I had to be right, or people would look down on me, which if my white counterpart did in class, like he could just brush it off, or she could just brush it off and move on. But for me, if I showed up and I wasn't prepared, or if I didn't know what I was talking about, or if I was truly confused, it would make me feel like I shouldn't be in that space.
The professor, when you're asking a question in class that anyone else would ask, I've been talked to any kind of way by my white professors, Asian professors, and it almost makes me feel like whenever they're like, oh, any question here, any question. But then when I ask a question, it's almost like, well, why are you asking this stupid question? I don't know. Like, I truly feel like sometimes, I try to ask my classmates. And at the end of the day, the professor's the one grading my paper. So I don't want him to view me even worse than he already does. I don't know. It's kind of terrible, but particularly from my professors, I feel as though I'm viewed differently, looked down upon. Things that I say are belittled and sort of yeah.
At Columbia, we have the core curriculum, which is basically the required classes that every Columbia College undergraduate student is required to take. And it's a, predominantly white curriculum. Basically, us reading, white texts for a semester, 2 semesters. And in my experience, when we get to that one text that Columbia included, so the Black people would stop complaining, be it, The Fire Next Time by James Baldwin or Song of Solomon by Toni Morrison. There's always that one text they put in there so they could be like, oh, no, we give y'all some, But whenever they get to that text, it's always like, I'm required to be Martin Luther King. Like, everybody looks at me and, whenever he kind of says anything, everybody's like, shh, yo, he's about to talk. And I'm just like, I'm speaking for myself. I'm not speaking on behalf of the Black community. We have a discussion board before each class where we talk about the reading. And for one of my discussion posts, I told my class, when I talk, it is for myself, not for my community. It's my experience. So when we have this discussion tomorrow, please do not look at me like the sole arbiter of, Black knowledge. And then the next day came and we started having conversations, and people were like, I actually don't want to speak until Ikenna speaks. I was like, yeah, go, bro, go. Speak.
Just adding to that, I think it was very similar for me. I minored in inequality studies and health equity. So I feel like in a lot of my classes, I was the only Black person, the only Black woman in my class. And when topics about injustice would come up, everyone would stare at me and they would expect me to say something. And it got really overwhelming, feeling like I needed to be, the speaker for the entire Black community. I'm just 𝐋𝐄𝐓'𝐒. I can only speak towards my experiences.
When I was in physics my freshman year, I remember again, like some other people were saying, just that feeling that you don't know if the professors are like speaking the way they are to you because you're Black, or that's just how they talk to everyone. And I remember this one time that I went to office hours for physics, and the professor was just very dismissive of everything that I had to say. And I was like, is it because it's me, or are you just like this? Like, you always have to have that in the back of your mind, because you don't know whether it's because you're Black or if it's just how they speak to everybody else. That's it with physics for me. I was done with physics after that.
It kind of, you reminded me that, with this discussion section I was talking about, we were reading white person after white person. Then and I would get talked over, and like, Nina, hold on, someone else is speaking. You can't ask questions, like Demi was saying. And then we read MLK's letter from a Birmingham jail, and it became, Nina, would you like to say anything? What's your thoughts?
No, facts. Like, when we were reading The Fire Next Time, they made it seem like James Baldwin was my dad. Like, I can only speak for myself. It was the most frustrating experience.
Have you guys experienced any other racism, period, on your campus?
I've been called seven, because I kept track, 7 other Black guys. And I get it so often. At a certain point, it's just like, it is what, I guess it is. It shouldn't be, it is what it is, but it is just very exhausting, because I'm like, you know me better than to be calling me somebody else.
Freshman year, when I was in the dining hall, I had left to go to the bathroom, and we have a dining hall worker that like stands by the door. So like, I had left, then like I came back, and then as soon as I got back to my table, the lady came to me and asked me for like my ID, and I was like, you literally just saw me like go outside. Why are you asking for my ID? And she was like, oh, I'm just checking, just making sure nobody comes in that's not supposed to. So
I remember during an office hours, one of the teacher's assistants asked me my name, and I told him my name, and his response was, you have a middle name? I was like, yeah, I do, but why do you need that information? He was like, oh, it's kind of, just for pronunciation's sake. I was like, learn my first.
So now I'm going to go into the comment questions.
Group chats are a really great way. So like, usually at least in my year, we had like the Black Ivy group me, which was a really great way. And then like, when you go on like to other campuses, like, you'll be able to like connect with people. So I think like having those type of group chats and like just keeping up those relationships is a really great way to be able to like build relationships on other campuses.
As an athlete, I would say Black women. Personally, I'm not in too many white spaces, so I wouldn't really know, but I would definitely say Black women.
For your like teammates, do you feel like it's the same, or just for you?
No, I think if you look good, then everybody will like you, Black and white.
Similar to Ryan, I'm not in a lot of white spaces like that, so the attention does tend to come from Black women. But I've gotten like some very interesting comments from white women as well.
Can you give us an example of an interesting one?
My second week of school in the dining hall, it's like having random conversation with a white girl, just like very cordial. And like, to end it off, she's like, I've never been with a Black guy before. And that was the end of that conversation.
Run!
Get out.
Get out.
Yeah, run, Forrest, run.
Can you all raise your hand if your school has a Black dormitory?
I mean, ours is Black-ish. It's not specifically Black, but that's where all the Black people be at.
So like, you're victim to racism no matter where you go, no matter what you're doing. If you got a PhD, if you work for the FBI, I feel like, of course, you're going to feel like people think little of you because of the color of your skin and because of the world that we live in.
The biggest tip you can give to a minority student coming to an Ivy?
I think this is a tip for a minority student and honestly everyone. Take care of your mental health. I think that's very important. The Ivy League can be very strenuous on the mind. It's a pressure cooker, honestly. I would say find somebody to talk to that you can trust, and they won't share that information.
Know that you always belong, no matter how much imposter syndrome you feel right when you get there, because I feel like that's something I definitely had, and probably a lot of other people too. But just know that you deserve to be at whatever school you are as much as everybody else who goes there.
Do you? Because I think that there are a lot of people in the world who will just judge what you choose to do. And I think that the only thing that matters in your experience at an Ivy League is what makes you happy and what builds up yourself to be the person who you want to be.
Find your community. There's something out there for you, especially it's so easy to feel like you're an other, and especially if you're a minority. So find your Black community, find whatever affinity group that you belong to, lean on them when you need support. That's just so important.
So that concludes the kickback conversation today. You guys can find their Instagrams in the description box and at the credits at the end if you have any more questions to ask them, to DM them. Otherwise, thanks guys. Bye.
I hope you enjoyed this video today and learned some new things about the Black experience. Please make sure you smash that subscribe button and press the notification bell so you can know when I post, which is every Monday, Fridays. In the description box, I'm still leaving foundations that you can donate to, so please make sure to go check those out. Continue being safe and doing your part. I'll catch you guys on the next kickback. Bye!